I'm so excited that we have Innovate Digital Solutions as a sponsor of heCast this season. Innovate Digital Solutions provides anything that an office might need: hardware, software, IT, copy machines, things like that. They make an office run more smooth, and they're really good at it. But one of the things that I love about Innovate, their founders, Andre and Katia Brasso, they're people that don't just believe it's important to build a strong business, but also to take that success and build the strong community around them. They really have a heart for what HeChangedIt is doing. People they love have gone through some of the stuff that we talk about on this show. Andre and Katia both believe that you can build a life worth living, and there are these evidence-based solutions that can help build that life. We're so excited to be in partnership with Innovate Digital Solutions, and HeChangedIt is better for it, and we hope you will be too. Go to innovate.ca and check them out. Welcome to heCast, the official podcast of HeChangedIt. As always, I am Mike Chisholm. As always, I'm excited to be here and talk about just talk to guys and people and have guests on the show and talk about their story or just things around the world of men's mental wellness. That's what heCast is all about. If you haven't downloaded the HeChangedIt app, what are you waiting for? Go to HeChangedIt.com and you can see the vision of the company and everything that's going on in the world of HeChangedIt. You can download the app to whatever device you have. Now, I think if those of you who have watched or listened to heCast for a long time know I love hanging out with creatives. I'm a huge music fan. I'm a stand-up fan, visual arts as well. And today we've got a really, really cool musician. His name's Ben Farrell. Now Ben is Poolfire. I don't know if you've heard of Poolfire or not. Go check them out. Jump on the Spotify's, the Apple Music's, whatever. Look for Poolfire, Poolfire. Really, really cool. I don't know if you call him a group. He's an artist, so Ben's an artist. Poolfire is a group. They do perform live, but also he puts out amazing music. And not only that, he has started an artist collective, is what I call it. I don't know exactly how you call it, but it's called Velo Club. So you can go to veloclub.com, VELOCLUB.com. And what he is doing is he's not just creating, but he's helping people create. And we talk about that in this episode here. We talk about the idea of showing people how they can be remarkable. And I really enjoy that. Yes, we talk about music a lot, and that's a good gateway because folks love music anyway, but there's a lot of larger life lessons that can be learned for guys going through stuff right now. Maybe they're on autopilot a little bit and they haven't stretched their legs out and done some of the things that are kind of in their guts wanting them to do. We talk a lot about that. That's the beautiful thing about talking with artists of any discipline, really. People who are courageous enough to take what's inside of them and put it out. We talk about imposter syndrome. We talk about all sorts of fun stuff. And I'm just really, really excited to present this episode of heCast with Ben Farrell, Poolfire. Enjoy. Ben, I'm so grateful that you've taken time out of your day to come on to heCast. You're in Glendale, California, right?
Glendale, California. Yes.
I got a good friend of mine that lives in Toluca Lake, and I was just in your area a couple of weeks ago. It's such a cool place for creatives to dwell in that area, isn't it?
It totally is. I'm definitely a big fan of like Northeast LA. I like it a lot. I think there's a lot of culture in like the Eastern LA. Big fan, especially tattoos.
Where did you grow up?
I grew up a little bit north of Boston in a city called Woburn, so about 15 minutes north of Boston. And then I moved out to Western Massachusetts, and I lived out there for a while. That was really cool too.
At what point did you make the move out west? I mean, that's a big move. Going from Boston to California, that's a big move. Was that a family thing, or was that something that you did on your own to chase your dream?
You got to go chase the dream. No, I moved out here. So I'd come out a few times, just like working in music and stuff. And I finally made like the real move almost a year ago, just a little under a year ago. Yeah. And that was, inspired by music. I mean, dude, there's only so much of a ceiling you can really get to in any place that there's no like infrastructure for it, and to just be at the heart of where music is happening worldwide, kind of got to make that jump at some point.
It's LA or New York, basically, if you're in the States. I mean, there's other places like, the Nashvilles of the world or Memphis, and there are some places where music's being created as well. But LA, New York are kind of the
Totally.
two hubs for especially for the type of music you're making. Is that fair to say?
I think so. I mean, what it comes down to for me is like, even like the psychology of it. If you're surrounding yourself with artists and just an environment that things are going to happen, like, you know, it's the difference between trying to eat healthy and being around people who eat pizza all day versus being around people who are like eating super clean. Like your surroundings influence you a whole bunch. So
Oh my God, yeah, and the people that are around us as well. Obviously, this is
yeah,
a men's mental wellness podcast. We talk about where guys are at, that sort of thing. Many times, that's one of the linchpins for people in their mental health is who they surround themselves with, the environment. Is this an environment that cultivates who I am inside and what I want to do?
yeah,
And that's
totally.
cool. So how old are you right now at the time of this recording?
I'm 27, dude.
27.
Just
You know what?
keep
For
getting
a
older.
guy in his mid 20s, that's a piece of wisdom that you learned early on. There's a lot of guys in their 40s and 50s that still, are whether they're too scared to make a move like that or to do something. You moved all the way across the country to surround yourself with people, infrastructure, like you said, that help cultivate this need in you to create music. That is such a cool thing. Was there a defining moment where you said, okay, I'm going to make this decision, or was this a decision that you've been planning on for a long time?
I think that, I mean, I guess there was like kind of like a perfect storm of things. Like I had been living at like a really, you know, a nicely priced apartment in Western Mass for a considerable amount of time. And, my lease was coming up. Um, there was a lot of like comfort that was sort of coming to a close. And, ultimately, I mean, the way I kind of approach things is I really try to keep in perspective what my goals are in my limited time on Earth.
Mm-hmm.
And there's been no doubt that music is something that I've wanted to pursue. Artist development is something I've wanted to pursue. So, at some point I had to come out eventually. And it was just really a matter of like, setting a time, setting a date, booking a flight. Um, but yeah, I mean, apart from that, there really was no, concrete plan when I got here. I kind of had to just adjust as I go. So it definitely brought some struggles, but yeah.
Did you know you wanted to be a musician ever since, childhood? Was it always a through line, or was it something that you discovered?
I always knew I wanted to be like a creative person and just like, you know, be involved in art in some capacity. The medium was always kind of unclear, but yeah, I mean, I've always been the type of person to look at things a bit differently. And I think that's something shared with a lot of skateboarders. Like I used to
Yeah.
skate and ride BMX and stuff.
Oh.
The whole premise of skateboarding is like looking at your surroundings and saying like, how do I use these to, you know, create art out of it? Like most people see a stair set and they think to walk down the stair set or go get up and down. They have a practical use for it.
Yeah.
And, the whole premise of skateboarding is like reimagining the world around you. So, um,
Hmm.
I think I've always wanted to just reimagine the world around me and try and make something cool out of it.
Oh my God, that's such a cool perspective. I don't know. Have you ever heard of Jerry Seinfeld's take on skateboarders? Skateboarders get a bad rap.
I'm
They
gonna
really.
Can I
Oh, go
say a
ahead.
hot take on Jerry Seinfeld?
Please do.
His TV show, amazing, situational comedy,
Yep.
and great.
Yep.
His stand up, not feeling it.
I feel you. I get it. It's the observation of skateboarders that I think you will feel. I think you'll feel
Okay,
this one
let's hear
here.
it. Yeah.
What he says about skateboarders is like the skateboarders get a bad rap. They really, really do. He
Mhm.
looks at skateboarders and he's like, "Do you have any idea the time the level of difficulty and how many times you have to fail. He actually compares skateboarding to stand up, because the best stand ups in the world, they go on so many bombing runs. They say they bring out their vulnerability and they put forth their stuff to crickets. They eat
Yeah.
plates and bowls of crap, and skateboarders are the same thing. I mean, how many times do you bail before you learn how to do a simple ollie? Never mind
Yeah.
a rail slide or a grind or something like that. And he looks at skateboarders. You see those guys? They're going to be okay. They're going to be okay in life because they're learning perseverance. And then when you add that detail, so I love his take on that. But then you
Yeah.
add the artist, viewpoint, where I'm going to change the world around me or repurpose the world around me to do something
Yeah.
cool. What a great mentality that is, and a neat way to look at life. How can we reframe the world that's around us, whatever that looks like, wherever we are, whatever our perspective is? I really, really groove on that. When was Poolfire born?
Poolfire was born November 1st, I think 2020, I believe.
You
Yeah.
got the date. You got the
Yeah, I
date.
do.
This is before you moved.
But yeah,
Okay.
definitely before I moved. So that was actually the first day I ever came out to Los Angeles. So, because I'd had like an artist project before this. I mean, I'd had a million artist projects before this,
Oh yeah. Yep.
but yeah, I mean, Poolfire was like, there's so many different iterations of like the type of music that I wanted to make. Same thing with skateboarding. Like you try things out, you learn whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So Poolfire was like, it was first born from this one song that I kind of created where I just, stripped everything back in my life, like completely deleted my old artist project, and just like started square one.
Mm-hmm.
And, like the first song was like so stripped back. It was just made in one day, on like an audio interface, direct input guitar
Yep.
and singing through like a, preset guitar amp, and
Yep.
and then just set it to drop, and went to LA, and yeah, that was the first time I visited. So that's how I know the date was, first time I ever went to LA.
November 1,
November 1st is
2020.
actually, yeah, November 1st has been like a recurring date throughout my life. I mean, that's the day two of my cousins were born,
Yep.
the day my grandmother died, All Saints Day. So
I
I don't know.
I also noticed that it was in the middle of a pandemic. Like
It
you
was.
figured out a way to get across the country, and what are you doing when you go out there? Are you networking with folks? Are you showing them? Is it like the old? Because the old versus the new when
Yeah.
it comes to musicians getting their stuff out there. There's so much stuff. In many ways it's so much easier to record now and to create something than it used to be. But at the same time, it's also much, much, much more difficult to create a career out of it, to create that, never mind things like getting it out there, distribution, all that sort of stuff where people will actually hear it. I mean, anybody can put something up on SoundCloud. So you have this song. Is the goal to network with people and show it to them at this point and start to make connections in LA?
At that point, I mean, it was, at that point, okay, so I guess the whole reason I had stripped back and started over was like, at that point in time, like my views on pursuing music were very like jaded. And,
Okay.
I just had like so much experience at this point trying an artist project around, the Boston area, and, getting some buzz. I mean, I was having like label meetings and stuff, and,
Yeah.
And at that point in time, I got very like phased from it. I just had a lot of people saying a lot of things, most of which like had no real concept or, actual like, ideas, but I mean, they were credentialed. And so it just got like really overwhelming. And that
Mm-hmm.
wasn't why I'd gotten into it in the first place. I felt like I was getting kind of influenced a lot to make certain types of music, and it started becoming a very like, this is what's hot on the market approach, which is an ass backwards approach to like creating. I mean, the whole reason, I could go on a whole rant, but
No, go for it. You're preaching to the
yeah.
choir on this. I love this. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, so, I was just getting jaded by it, and I was like, this isn't why I even got started in this in the first place. And so when I started the Poolfire project, it was like, well, I'm just gonna do, um, whatever I want and make something good and create stuff that I'm really excited about. Um, because otherwise you're just gonna inevitably burn out.
Yep.
Um, and men's mental health, like that's, my mental health fucking sucked.
Yeah.
So can I cuss on here? I'm
Yeah.
so
You say
sorry.
whatever you want.
Okay,
Say whatever you want.
all right, apologies.
No apologies
So
necessary. We
okay,
talk as
good,
men here,
good, good,
sir.
good. Okay, great. So yeah. So I just, like, I don't know, I took a step back, whatever. So I don't know where I was going with this. Long
No,
story
no, no.
short,
Authenticity. No, 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 no. I want to stay on this for a second because, like, I
okay,
look at, like,
cool.
I'm a huge fan of Halsey. I think she's fantastic. And
Mhm.
I looked at her first couple albums, and then I look at where she went, and then the album that came out a couple years ago, produced by Trent Reznor. She talked about that. She talked about the same journey, how she had
Mm,
put out this album, and it was her, and then suddenly it was a matter of listening to, and she's on tour with The Weeknd suddenly, and it's pop, pop,
mm,
pop this and pop that, and she needed to go back and create something that was more her.
yeah,
And you talking about this authenticity that you were searching for in your art, and sometimes, like, those golden handcuffs look pretty shiny, like, okay, yeah, we can help you monetize, or we can help you, have a career in the genre that you've always wanted to have. But then suddenly you realize, okay, yeah, but whoa, hold on, the genre is the music genre, but that's a big genre. I don't want to
yeah.
do something that's not authentic to me. And if I'm hearing you right, that's kind of the precipice that you were at. Is that fair? A fair statement?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, what it comes down to, what it boils down to is, like, don't let anybody lead you down a path that doesn't align with what your, overarching vision is. What's your North Star? So, I mean, in my case, it was like, people would be like, okay, you want to be an artist, like, let's take you down a path that will get you to be an artist. But a good analogy to kind of compare this to is, it's like if you told someone, oh, I want to go on a vacation, and in your
Yeah.
mind you're picturing like a nice beach, it's warm, uh you're kicking it with like coconuts and whatever. I don't know what you're
Yeah.
envisioning, but you tell somebody about that, and then they're like, oh, you got to go to Europe, you got to go to Berlin, you got to check it out, there's nightclub life. Like, they have maybe experience, but they also don't, you know, they have to kind of follow through on what your end goal is, because otherwise you're going to end up in a totally ass backwards, like, situation than what you wanted to set out for in the first place.
What a gift. There's so many people out there in this world right now that aren't present. And they're just going through the motions, right? They're just literally, jumping every obstacle that comes, and they're just focusing on kind of the next one. What a
Mm-hmm.
great gift that was to you to know, okay, well, hold on a second. I have a vision here, and
Yeah.
you're not adhering to the vision that I have. You don't even know the vision that I have. You're putting your vision on me, and so I need to go back here, and like you say, you stripped it away and you brought it back to your vision again. And when I listen to Poolfire, it feels authentic. It feels
Mm.
really, really authentic. I love, like I was telling you before, I love Mr. Scared. When I heard Mr. Scared for the first time, I'm like, this is going to be a great podcast, because I can talk with anybody. I can have a good podcast with anybody. But when I get
Yeah.
stoked on what they do, or their story, or whatever it is, it's got a little bit more juice to it. And this one, like, I heard that song, and immediately, um, I started thinking about bands that I loved back in the 80s to bands I love now, and put together influences that might have created this amazing, amazing song. It really feels like you're pouring out who you are into this.
Yeah, you have to, I mean, and that's the difference. It's tough. I think where a lot of artists really struggle, in fact, I know, where a lot of artists really struggle when they're creating, is either they're, well, I don't know. I guess there's a million ways they struggle, but yeah, you have to, at the end of the day. have the art come from somewhere, and you can't try and be like, oh, I'm going to speculate what is going to sound good or whatever. Like, you have to just go for it. I think the first pass of like going through that, recording that one specifically,
Mm-hmm.
like we just plugged in a guitar, and it was, I think we made that whole song was made really, really fast, like 30 minutes or something. Like, it was me and Blake
Wow.
Bigfoot. Shout out Blake Bigfoot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what
Really
were the
fast.
roles there? Like is he an engineer, producer, or whatever, or he's a collaborator on the actual music itself? Like, what were the roles in creating that so quickly?
Yeah. And that one, I mean, he helped with like, producing, and I can't remember if he did the bass line or if I did the bass line. I did the guitars. He engineered it.
Mm-hmm.
Super helpful. I am picky about like lyrics, so that I did. Um, but yeah, I mean, very collaborative stuff.
Do you
Um,
enjoy performing?
I love performing. Yeah.
So it's
I don't,
okay because it's a different animal.
yeah.
Like you've got a whole bunch of
Oh,
hats
whole
that you
different animal.
have. You know,
Yeah. So many friggin' hats. So many. But
I
yeah,
remember. Go ahead, please
oh,
go.
no,
Yeah.
you got it. No, you go. No, you.
I was gonna say is I remember I'm a huge Nine Inch Nails fan, like gigantic Nine
Yep.
Inch Nails fan, and Trent Reznor. I think about him. The very first Nine Inch Nails album in the notes, I think it
Yeah.
did credit maybe some of the live band that was there, but it was a very definitive statement. Nine Inch Nails is Trent Reznor. That was in the very first
Mm.
Nine Inch Nails album that came out, and it said that it's and he was that guy. He did all of the music and had the vision, and then would bring in other musicians to kind of teach them for the live aspect. And as soon as I started getting into your stuff, I was instantly curious if this is a similar situation where okay, Poolfire is you and your vision, and if there is going to be a live performance, you'll bring people in, but it's bring those people in to kind of learn your vision and how to present it. Is that an accurate statement, or do you have some ride or die folks that are with you that help you with this?
Um, there's definitely a fair bit of like, I definitely have my go-tos,
Yeah.
for sure. But yeah, ultimately at the end of the day, it is like, bringing on people and, trying to bring in, I mean, the toughest thing whenever you're working on any sort of like larger scale project or pushing a vision outside of yourself is, when you bring someone on, yeah, you can bring them on for their technical abilities, but technical abilities really don't mean shit. I mean, somebody can rip on guitar, but if you need to kind of like tell them what to do specifically,
Yep.
it's not really helpful. So, you're kind of taking people on for their brain and their artistry or their ability to like fill in those gaps and be proactive about like, understanding your vision and helping push it forward. Because I
Yes.
try and boil everything I do down to two basic forces, which are thrust and drag. And, if I take on someone who's like a really great guitar player, they are thrust to the vision. If they're able to implement that towards, pushing the vision forward. If
Right.
you have to like sit and kind of like tell them exactly how to do each thing or whatever, like, and micromanage it, that's ultimately like a drag. You know what I mean?
Yep.
You're better off getting someone who's like less great at guitar, but they can kind of like, figure things out themselves or are a little bit self-sufficient. And then, in turn, you have to provide value to them. So, I don't know, whatever
No,
that
the
looks like.
absolutely the alchemy is way more important than the ingredient. The ingredient is one thing, but it's how the ingredient mixes with the ingredients you bring to the table. The alchemy of those two things
Totally.
is yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. Have you performed live a lot?
Not a ton. I'd like to do a lot more.
Yeah.
Honestly, the best show I ever played, speaking of like getting people for their brains, and this was totally like, I can't even take credit for this at all. Best show I ever played was in New York at the Mercury Lounge. And I got this band together of like my homie Corey Kamara, and his friend Spencer Gusta. Oh fuck, I hope I said his last name right. And our other buddy Arthur Duran pulled together totally last minute from across the country. I like texted them so, not in advance, and they rehearsed like a couple times. I'd never rehearsed with them. We only rehearsed once before the show.
Yep.
And dude, they absolutely killed it. Like it sounded so good. I was like, wow, these are thrusts. These are definition of thrust. Yeah.
So when was that? Just to give context here. And did you play any of the stuff that you're currently playing, or was this some of the before you decided to strip everything down?
This was October 9th, I believe. I could be
just this last
that.
year.
Yeah, this was.
Oh, yeah, perfect. Oh, that's great.
Yeah, it was a great show. I want to say, what did I play? What was the set list? I think it was Radio Man, Serotonin Pockets.
Great title, by the way. I love the title of that song. Oh my God. When I saw that, I was just like, yep.
Mental health.
Yeah. Well, that's part of it. But the other one was just like, oh God, that's clever.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. And I don't know some of the other ones, but we did play Got a New Guitar today. That was the first Poolfire song ever. And that one's always fun live. Very punk.
That's, I dig it very much. So okay. So you have this creation mind, you have a performer mind that loves to do that. And then you also have the idea. And again, I always keep going back to Trent Reznor, because when he moved from TBT Records over to Interscope, one of the things that he demanded was autonomy. The other thing he demanded was the idea that he could help build other artists. And it always, and so he wanted kind of a sub label so he could, develop other folks. So you have this hat too. And I want to talk about Velo Club a little bit as well. Is it a matter of the fact that you just have gone through what you've gone through? Your story is your story. You're a creative that needs to get it out there and do it. Come hell or high water, you're gonna take the chance to make it happen. You're gonna chase your dreams, and you kind of learn things along the way, and you want to make the way easier for people that are coming along. Like, I'm really curious how that hat showed up and when it showed up.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think what it really boils down to is like I said, growing up in Massachusetts, you don't really have the infrastructure or, the relativity to see the people around you also pursuing artistry.
Yeah.
And, it's such like a smoke and mirrors sort of like, I don't understand what the hell I'm doing type of thing. Because when people talk about art, they talk about it so, either you're an artist or you're not an artist. It's like you're cut from a different cloth. And that's not true. Like, there's certain frameworks that I've had to learn over time that any innovator in any sector, when they learn these frameworks, which are based on like, lean startup methodology, like, psychology is huge. We're in the business of emotion. You need to understand how emotions work. You need to understand how you're, 99% of artists are going to fail. In fact, there's 100,000 songs that are uploaded every single day to Spotify. Artists need to understand the frameworks of how do I stand out compared to them.
Yep.
And it's not like something like, oh, I'm just going to sign to a label and they're going to hit the red button and they're going to cut me a check and I'm going to fucking blow up, because that doesn't work, obviously. Nope. And the data is there. I guess it's not obvious. I shouldn't say that. Anyways, long story short,
through the School of Hard Knocks, it becomes obvious to you. But for the person with a song and a dream or whatever, there's a naivete that is there that you don't know until you don't know what you don't know. And now that you know some of these things, it feels you are starting to be a through line for the folks who don't know something, and you're trying to show them some of the things that they don't know. Is that accurate?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you don't know what you don't know. Like, even that in itself is something that I'm covering. So like right now, initially we're kind of concierge MVP startup terminology. Like
Yep.
literally, I'll just get on the fucking phone with artists and bands and try and like fill those knowledge gaps manually. But as we grow, I mean, now we've got like a fair bit of bands. I think we're at like 20. I don't know. I think I don't know, or artist slash bands, I should say.
Yep.
But there's a lot, and being on the phone all that time is kind of a lot. So now I've kind of written out a bit more of like a clear sort of framework to give to them, and it's like identifying gaps is a huge sort of aspect in it. But I mean, let me back it up here. If there's one
Sure.
thing that I would really give as advice to any artist or band out there who's trying to push their stuff, it's not so much like, it's not about pushing, it's about positioning yourself, and knowing that like, at the end of the day, if you're not making something that's remarkable, nobody's going to remark about it. And like, that's kind of the end goal for an artist, is to be remarkable. And I think we forget that, and we fall back into, again, safety and comfort, which is like, my homies in like this scene are making this type of music, I'm going to make that music, and I'm just going to try and make it like good or passing. But unless you're stepping out and taking a risk and giving somebody a reason to talk about it, they're not going to talk about it. And there's a whole bunch of fallacies within that we can really dive into and explore. But yeah.
So let's go back to the formation of Velo Club. Let's okay.
Oh,
So
yeah,
it's in
sorry.
the startup phase right now. But what exactly is it? Let's do the, not even the elevator pitch. Let's talk a little bit about what it is and what you're hoping to achieve with it.
If I had to describe it, it is a totally reversed version of a record label. So, the way a record label works is like, I'm scouting artists very manually, under the premise that I'm going to find the good ones and I'm going to pull them up and I'm going to give them money, and then I'm going to be, either majority or at least half rights ownership. And, from the artist standpoint, they're like, oh, the label's going to pull me up and whatever. Like everything about it is shifted. So in our model, initially, yes, we are scouting the artist to make sure that it's like a good fit and that they're proactive enough to actually have a career, but we don't want to just, cut a check to 20 and hope to work out. Like we want to hope that most of them are working and, they don't even take a check unless they need it. Because I'm sure, well, actually, I don't think many people know how recoups work. So, yeah, it's crazy. I mean, so for example, let me boil down how a recoup works right now. So for anybody who's watching right now, and if you're not in the music world or you are in the music world, I didn't even know how recoups work when I took my first advance. If I'm a major label and we're going to do an 80-20 split, first off, the label's getting 80, you're getting 20. Okay, that's cool. I'm going to give you an advance of $100,000. How much money do you have to make in order for you to be recouped?
Well,
I'm going to ask you.
100,000 is the 20%. You got to make a hell of a lot more money to recoup $100,000.
Yeah, that's right. So you don't
900
start
grand.
getting.
You got to make 900 grand. You got to bring in.
It's
Is
80-20. 500,000 has to come in before you start getting paid. Yep. And that
again,
first
before you
money
start
is
getting paid
for
again, you got your advance. You give us 500K, we'll start paying you some more money at that point.
Yep. And then you get into the intricacies of it, where it's like, how much of that 100K do I get up front? How much do I get upon creation of the next records? There's so much stuff. We strip all that shit back, excuse me. And then we just simplify it and teach you how to like go be able to do that stuff, because there is the biggest sort of like takeaway is that there is no red button. There is no, I'm pushing this and you're blown up. And I think that's the misconception amongst a lot of artists, which is pushed. I mean, the narrative is always, when you watch an interview or whatever, and I think big artists should be slightly more responsible, I think, to paint a very real picture of like, you know, they're always like, keep hustling, keep believing, just go
Mhm.
for it. I can fucking hustle all day, every single day, and make zero progress
Yeah.
because I'm not, you know, implementing a framework and reverse engineering it essentially. So I don't know that, you know, we try and let people have those mental tools. I guess it's the same concept of like, you know, if I put someone on an island and told them they had to survive without any help from the outside world, they're probably going to die. But if I
Yep.
took someone who was a native of that island, all they have that's different is the knowledge. They're
Hmm.
going to survive. They might even thrive. Um, so, you know, we try and give those people, artists, that knowledge.
Yeah, there's so many
Long story
folks
short.
who get into the music industry with talent and you know, ambition, all of that sort of stuff, but they go
Yeah.
in so naive. Like as you're talking about Recoup, I kind of sort of smiled to myself because I'm good friends with a guy who was in a a big band, you know, and you know, one of their songs got featured on a WWE event, and they were, you
Mm,
know, one of their songs is in NASCAR and all this sort of stuff, like big stuff, like it that, you know, a
yeah.
couple of their songs are everywhere, and
Yeah.
the poor guy, and this is like 15 years ago, and the poor guy is just he's hostage in his whole
Yeah.
life because of what the Recoup looks like, because something happened with the band halfway through, and the train went off the tracks. Normal life stuff, nothing extreme, normal life stuff, but yet
Yeah.
he is now a slave to this arrangement that was made. And if he would have been told this going in, it would have been a completely different situation.
Yeah.
So I hear you, and I mean now, like, I mean, you're 27. How old would you have been when Napster showed up? You would have been. Were you even around? Like
I
when the
was,
music industry
oh, I was
changed.
around. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
like the whole
Actually,
industry changed.
yeah, totally. Totally changed. Um, I'm trying to remember when exactly that was.
So we're
Cause there
talking
was,
like oh 05 probably. Oh 05, oh 06
okay.
maybe
Yeah.
in that
Yeah. I was
area,
about
I would think.
10, 9,
Yeah.
8, 8, 9, 10. I don't know.
And
Um,
you know, it was streamlined before, and you did have these very solid relationships, you know, these labels that would have relationships with terrestrial radio and then MTV and all that sort of stuff, and everything kind of changed after that. And now you
yeah,
hear labels that are going after like artists merch and different things on the live tour, because they're trying to
totally.
find ways that they can continue the gravy train rolling. And the artist, I mean, you know, the naivete that is out there, you know, it's really cool that you're trying to be a bright light in this world, and you're trying to help some of these artists here that are just trying to get their stuff out there. What's the
Yeah.
goal for Velo Club? Like, is there a set amount of groups that you want to work with? Like, do you want to scale it so you can work with hundreds? Like what's the goal?
I'd like, in an ideal world, I would like to help the most amount of artists have the tools for success possible. Because if that's, you know, if that's able to happen, we're going to get more innovation. We're going to get better art. And artists ultimately are the ones who are responsible for shaping the changes in the world.
Yep.
Um,
Yep.
that being said, incredibly important to think about, like, if I was to take on all artists, what happens to those artists? Because the reality is not everyone's cut out to be an artist. It's a
Yep.
fucking grind,
Yep.
even with all the right tools. Um, so if I start pairing the people with shit attitudes to the people with great attitudes who are proactively doing this and understand it, um, they're going to have a bad effect on the whole. So I have to be really, in these first parts of, you know, doing this, I have to be extremely selective. So before, I would kind of just like have phone calls with a band that I like scouted or whatever, um, see kind of where their head was at, and then bring them on. Now we've kind of made it a little bit more of a screening process,
Mm-hmm.
just to make sure that, like, you know, people are on it. Because, dude, even like, if I look from a artist standpoint, one of my biggest pet peeves is if I'm trying to work with somebody in the industry, I'll send a text sometimes I won't get a reply till like 2 weeks later
Yeah, they don't understand
or a
that part
month
of it.
later or
Yep.
none, period.
Yep.
And it's such a pain point. So we try and be super proactive about like getting back to people in a very timely manner, even if we don't have whatever answer they need right that second, like just to know that people are looking out. So in order to do that, we got to kind of keep it small, contained, and really just like test, make sure people are getting real value from it. But yeah, I don't know.
What genres do you look for?
It's not genre specific. It
Mm-hmm.
is alternative. So I think the people who benefit the most from our framework, we don't take on like anything that's like commercially, what someone else would deem as like commercially digestible,
Yep.
only because, if, for example, if the next Morgan Wallen, I like
Mm-hmm.
that song Last Night. That's my guilty pleasure song. Last Night.
Folks
That's
of
my guilty
alternative,
pleasure.
I love. Okay, because you're talking to one right here, Joel, our producer. Okay, so like alternative was the
Totally.
word was kind of born in the Gen X up and coming, and it was so cool to
Totally.
have that persona of loving alternative music, but you
Yeah.
can't deny when there's an amazing pop song that you loved. I'll tell you my
Mm-hmm.
guilty pleasure. We called
Yeah.
it a guilty pleasure. Oh, my guilty pleasure was this.
Yeah.
I was a Milli Vanilli fan. You know what? I love Nine Inch Nails. I loved like Nirvana was like religion to me. I was literally in my formative years when that band came up and blew the doors off the music industry and changed everything. Single-handedly killed glam rock.
Yeah.
I hold my hat on that and my early experiences being an early adopter of those bands. But I had a guilty
Yep.
pleasure, and it was Milli Vanilli. At the same time, hey, it was.
Of course.
But I
Yeah.
love how
Of
alternative
course.
folks have that. I love that it translates down even to the between the generations between us. Anyway, sorry,
For
dude.
sure.
I didn't mean to derail
No.
you. But
No, you're
Morgan,
good.
yeah,
You're good.
Morgan, that's your guilty pleasure song. If that
That
if
is
that artist would have come along, not necessarily for Velo Club.
not for Velo Club, no.
Velo Club.
Because
Sorry.
an
Yep.
artist, oh no, you're totally good.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's derived from French, means bicycle. And, the key is that it's a transparent mechanism to get you from point A to point B.
Yep.
So there's the little backstory. And it's also an anagram for love. I know, that's what you got to build it off of. You got
Delightful.
to, because
That's
otherwise
just.
it's going to crumble. Anyways, so,
But
yeah, I can't
alternative
work with
is a very big spectrum though as well.
huge
Yep.
spectrum. Yeah.
Yep.
So rather than focusing in on, because the thing is, the framework really works for a whole bunch of people who are deviating from the alternative. If I wanted to blow up a Morgan Wallen, it's going to take much more capital and mass acquisition than it's going to take for something that's already standing outside of the mainstream. That's going to be a lot. Here's another thing that artists don't realize because it's counterintuitive. A lot of this is counterintuitive, by the way. Like
Mm-hmm.
it all, I'm sure building a startup, like if you want to make a successful business, it's the ass opposite of what everybody around your dinner table is probably going to tell you what to do.
Yep.
So, if we focus on something that has a niche to it and we're focusing on just 1% of people and we're really focusing there and we're innovating in that space, eventually, and we're building super narrow, eventually you have the option to go
Yep.
horizontal,
Yep.
or you stay specialized within that space. And,
Yeah.
maybe you don't want to grow that big. So we try and, like, this framework really is built, like I said, with my own projects, like picturing what is that vacation you want to take and then working backwards to book those flights and book that reservation and make sure that the food is something that you're comfortable eating. Like, because otherwise, if you let somebody else take the wheel, you're not in charge of that destination.
Yep.
And you can't really complain where you end up if you sign away your rights. So we don't take, anybody's rights. It's like a 28-day rolling contract is basically how we operate right now. And if at any point you want to get off, like get off.
And
But
your
our
stuff
whole
is
thing
yours.
is like, yeah, your stuff is yours. That's right.
So
And we don't touch ancillary income, no 360, anything like, yeah.
Wow. So you provide many doors that people can walk through and you're trying to let them stay as pure as humanly possible, but giving them the best chance to succeed in this
Totally.
very, very tough business.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, the cool thing about this is I do another podcast on the side of this one, and I do it strictly out of my own, like it's my own love. I honestly don't care about the outcome of it because of how much joy it brings me. And I think that the idea that you can help an artist play in the pool, whatever that looks like for them. Yeah, they probably got to work a day job. They got to do this thing, but you're giving them this, you're giving them vision and you're giving them experience and you're giving them a pathway that they wouldn't have had otherwise. The outcome doesn't matter as much because they're at least being able to express themselves and feel like they're moving forward towards their goal, you know, hoping that the serendipity and the doors that need to open to take things to the next level, which are there for everybody, no matter what level you're at, you're at least giving them forward motion. And that's got to be extremely empowering for those people who just have a talent and they want to express it, but they don't know what to do next. That must be extremely empowering, getting to put them on that path so they enjoy the journey.
I sure hope so.
That's the
right
goal?
now, like I said,
That's the feeling
yeah,
you're
that's
wanting
the
to
goal.
create? Okay.
That's the goal. Definitely. Because, I mean, dude, you know, even right now, like I said, we're operating on a concierge MVP level where it's like, you know, people, I still feel like I'm giving people fish rather than teaching them, because there's only so much I can say in like an hour phone call, or if I'm really like exerting a 2 hour phone call or something like,
Yeah.
But, you know, again, with creating the framework and hearing, again, like it's good for me too, from like a data standpoint, where I get to talk and find out what those pain points are that are really tough. So I can kind of work backwards from that, in order to paint the bigger picture. But, you know, because if I talk to an artist right now who doesn't understand, like, again, like, okay, what's my end goal? How do I work back from that? You know, they might be like, how do I get something onto a Spotify playlist? Or how do I do this? How do I get like a hack to get in front of the most people? How do I work the TikTok algorithms? Well,
Right.
none of that stuff really matters at all. In fact, they're just tricks to build off, like, you know, what your North Star is. So if I don't even know what my North Star is and I get kind of sucked into one of these things, I'm just chasing that like next high, without ever really getting closer to what it is that I do want as like my day to day. So
my vocation is the financial service business, and I'm working my way into the broadcasting and obviously with Candy and Joel and building the startup and all that. But I had a money manager say something to me once, you know, when helping, you know, I asked him about choosing investments. And he goes, "You're a hockey fan?" I'm from Canada, so it's religion up here, right? He's like, "Yeah, I'm a gigantic LA Kings fan, actually, gigantic." And I said, "Yeah, I'm a hockey fan." He goes, "Okay, well, let's just say I wasn't a hockey fan, but I decided to become a hockey fan today. Is it good advice to pick the team that won the Stanley Cup last year to cheer for?" And I'd say, "Well, no." He goes, "Okay, you're right. Why not?" I said, "Well, because last year might have been a fluke. It might have been, you know, the best team in the leagues might have been injured. It might have been, you know, you don't know. You want to go for a longer period of time and you want to look at other things way more than just what happened last year." He goes, "Right. You need to be looking forward, right?" And I said, "Yeah." And it feels like that's what this is like for these artists who mistakenly try and go for the formula of what you're talking about, TikTok and some of these things. No, that worked for them. That doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work for you in what you're doing, because they are them and doing what they're doing. And it's you know, it's not something that you can format. You can't format your authenticity and whatnot. And yeah, like you say, with you back up a Brinks truck, okay, fine. You can buy a certain amount of this, whatever you want to call it. You can buy eyeballs, you can buy these things, but really at the end of the day, even that's fleeting. People who have bought their way to certain things, many times the depth doesn't show up. It ends up being flash in the pan type stuff. And so you helping people to basically look at their authenticity and focus
Yep.
on it, I think that's admirable.
Yeah, I mean, I think a good comparison to what you kind of said about, especially like the eyeballs, it's like, dude, if you go to the mall, what is the likelihood that any one person has garnered your attention? You're around tons. You're being
Yep.
exposed. Like,
Yep.
if I asked somebody else if they remembered you being in that mall, even though you were both in the same place and probably passed by each other twice, like, there's no reason for them to walk out of that mall thinking about you.
Yep.
On the other hand, if I did something actively, or I did something that garnered the attention and brought it to me, then they might leave that mall thinking about me, if
Yep.
I strip down naked in there.
Sure. Yeah. You put a sign on, you put a crazy outfit on or something like that. You give
Yeah,
them
yeah,
something to,
totally.
yeah. Yeah.
I just want to point out, I've never been naked in a mall.
All right. Well, you're only 27. We got
I
lots
just
of
want to
time.
point that out.
We got lots of time. We got lots of time. It can happen.
Next
It can.
week, if we have the same conversation, I don't know.
Um, I've appreciated hearing this hat version of
A lot of
Ben,
hats.
but
Yep.
let's go back to the artist. Does this startup, does this thing, does it fuel or does it suck life away from the artist, the performer?
No, I think it's
In you,
again,
not the people who work with Velo. I want to say specifically with you. Like, does it affect the other
yeah.
hats that you wear?
No, it's definitely been, there's a lot of things that I learn from this. And even, yeah, like in coaching other artists and stuff, you learn to apply these frameworks better in your own things, and like leadership and management skills. And I'm not talking about like, yeah, there's just so many ways that it's been beneficial, allowing me to work backwards, learning how to effectively like lead on my own projects. Cause that's another tough thing. Like, the only way for me to get these frameworks to work with, whatever bands or artists that I'm talking to, the only way it's really going to sink in is if they pass it on to somebody else. Teaching is the best way to learn by far, other than failing. Those are probably the only two ways.
Well, failure is the world's greatest teacher, so that makes sense. That makes sense too, right?
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. A little back and forth. So yeah, but yeah, no, it's definitely helped me a lot. I just shot like a music video, and I feel like I was so much better able to, work through that process, because working with other, collaborating is really tough. And that's a pitfall of so many like artists who maybe go shoot a music video or whatever. Like, it's easy to get a very not bland product, just a very unremarkable piece of work if you don't have the like the end goal of being like, how do we make this remarkable and tie into that North Star? Super important. There's so many, the devil's always in the details, but yeah. So long story short,
what
they
song
help each
did
other.
you shoot the video for?
Periwinkle.
For Periwinkle.
Be on the
When's
lookout.
that coming out?
Pretty soon, maybe within a week, maybe within a week and a half, something like that.
This is interesting because, I think about, when I was growing up, and very rarely did a band that was of consequence in my world anyway, release an EP or a single that wasn't attached. Sometimes I guess a single would, if it was attached maybe to a movie, like it was in a movie soundtrack or something like that, sometimes you'd see it. But now we're in a time where the LP seems to be a thing of the past, and there's a lot of creators out there who are creating, releasing 1-2 songs, one video, creating, releasing. Is that accurate, or is the goal, is the LP dead or dying?
Look, data is always going to present some level of story. I'm very much against the mindset of following trends. Ultimately, I'm more interested in creating the story. And I think that's the difference between artists and anybody else, consumers, is artists. My definition of an artist, and I've been very specific with this, is anybody who can create value. And when I say value, I mean meaning. So, it doesn't necessarily mean financial value.
Oh yeah.
It could be social value. It could be, anything, meaning. So,
yep.
And I think that the more we look at markets and try and base our decisions off that, and I understand that big companies do stuff like that, whatever, that is just painting, that's just a visualization of what's happening within our own psychology. So rather than focusing on that stuff, I try and focus on, what is it that's driving our decisions? There's a really good book, I think it's called Predictably Irrational, that I'm reading right now. Pretty cool book. I don't know. I don't focus on the details. I focus on big picture. Because if you do start to, look too much at markets and are people buying vinyls right now? Well, it doesn't really matter if those people are, because the people I'm communicating with, if I frame it correctly and allow them to understand what that value is, they might buy my vinyls. It doesn't matter if they're buying, whoever else is. So, yeah, maybe a little random.
Do you? No, it's not. It's not. I want to keep going with it. Do you see yourself being the guy that? There's going to be a 10-song LP, whether it's a concept altogether or it's just a bunch of different singular songs put together. Is that something that appeals to you, or do you enjoy the idea of making something and putting it out, making something, putting it out, making something, putting it out?
I think right now, I like making stuff and putting out, but I mean, I've got several projects that for all intents and purposes are at least, somewhat fully written. But I don't know. I just don't really like to, I like to work off what's happening and what I see is, happening around me, as opposed to, I think a lot of people get really tied up and overwhelmed with I got to make a album, and then I'm going to do the single rollout, and then there's going to be the video, and then there's going to be that and whatever. And it's I think, again, a part of, or at least maybe it's not a part of being an artist, but just, my own thing is adapting to whatever's happening around me and kind of finding my excitement within that. So right now there's a record I made, I had plans to put out a kind of a 80s dance inspired, more disco-y sort of project. But then I made a record a couple days ago that I was like, oh, this is so fucking cool, and this ties in with this other record and whatever. So I don't know. I just kind of work off whatever's happening. I think the second, if I wanted to tie it back to startups, I think the times people really die is when they cling to something and they're like, this is what I set out for myself and I'm going to make it work. And it's yeah, you need a North Star, but if you start to cling to details or, individual sort of plans or this is what's going to work, this is what's happening, I think that's the hill you die on,
So goals are important, but being able to have flexibility within those goals is equally important.
Yeah. Totally. Why would I limit myself on my already limited time on Earth,
Yeah. No, and that's a theme that you've gone back to a couple of times. At some point, you found out that Radio Man was being featured on Elton John's Rocket Hour. Now, did you find that out, or was that something that was because it goes right along with our conversation here? There are some people who would say, "Hey, slip us so-and-so and we'll get so-and-so's eyeballs or on so-and-so's program," or something like that. Now, did this happen organically, or was this something that was somebody did a favor for you? How did this happen?
This one was organic. Yeah, I've definitely had plenty of favors that I've been lucky enough, but no, this one was organic, and I got an email about it the day before. And what was even crazier was the email came from not an Apple account, and I knew his radio show was tied in with Apple.
Yeah.
And so I just totally disregarded it because I was that would be cool. But you know, I didn't think it was legit. You know, which is my own fault. By the way, if you're an artist and anybody sends you an email, reply to the email, schedule a call, whatever. Do that. Just keep every door open, regardless of whether or not you're gonna follow through. Because I've seen so many of my friends who are extremely like artist friendly people, whether they're in the label space or whatever other space, dude, they will do so much reach out, and artists are terrible about keeping doors open for themselves. And it's like, again, 100,000 songs on Spotify every day. If you want this to be your career, be proactive about it.
If
The
somebody
only people
notices you,
who
take
ever
notice
make
of
it.
the note. Yeah. If somebody notices you,
Yeah,
take notice of the notice. Like,
right.
don't
Everybody
be,
wants to
yeah.
be too cool for school, and it's like, dude, nobody will ever care about you. Like, first off, your fans don't know what phone calls you're ever taking. I don't know. It's silly. Keep all the doors open, regardless of whether or not you want to walk through one. And little word to the up and comers.
That's life advice that anybody can accept. If somebody's paying attention
That's
to
true.
you,
Yeah.
find out why they're paying attention to you, and don't close doors. That's fantastic advice for life.
There we go.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool guys go nowhere. I think maybe that's something I should like. I don't know. But I'm cool, so let me point that out. Anyways, just to make sure we're aware.
So let's go back to Elton John,
What was I getting at?
because that's a cool
Oh,
moment.
that's right. Yeah.
That's a cool moment.
Yeah. Got that email and I was like, that'd be nice. And then, you know, I was listening to the show the next day because I was like, I wonder if I will be on here. And first one was like, I forget who it was. It was like big artists. I think the first one was Tame Impala.
Oh.
And I was like, well, that's Tame Impala. And then the second one I think was Strokes, because I think they just dropped like the new Abnormal. And I was like, well, that's the Strokes. And then third one he mentioned, he's like, now we've got a cool new artist from Boston. He's Latin American, or maybe he said Guatemalan. And he was like, his name's Poolfire, and it's a pretty cool song. And I was like, oh shit. So I got super hyped.
Before it was like, okay, yeah, that's Tame Impala, that's the Strokes. Now it's like, that was my lead-in. Tame Impala and the Strokes were my lead-in. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Now when that happened,
Yeah.
did you notice a bump? Let's talk about that part of it. Did you notice a bump in any of your worlds? And then also, just did it change?
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot of guys who have imposter syndrome, and it doesn't feel like I don't know if you've ever struggled with imposter syndrome or anything like it.
No.
But
Definitely.
if you did, I'm certain something like that would have been some pretty good medicine for it.
Yeah. Okay. So as far as a bump, there was definitely a bump. What I will say is, you know, I'm fully independent artist, and you know, I did not have means to, you know, capital or funding or whatever. That would have been a great moment to capitalize. Had I
if
had
there
it,
was marketing budget, that would have been something you could have, a press release or something. You could have made some hay with
PR.
that. You could have made some hay PR wise. Okay, I gotcha.
Yep. So anytime there's like a stamp of approval, you know, I guess it's in growing anything. If there's something else to do, it's like strike while the iron's hot. You know, while you're buzzing, go get something happening. I was fucking broke. I was literally working at a candle factory. Well, I don't know if I should shout them out, but I love candles, and
shout them out
really
then
good.
if you love them.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Yankee Candle.
Nice.
Yeah. It was actually a really cool, fun gig. But yeah, I was working at a candle factory, and so this was happening as I was like going into clock in at a factory. And granted, it was like, yeah, it was kind of like, you know, I'm sure people who actually work there like full time. I was there like temp between jobs.
Yep.
I'm sure people who work there would disagree with me, but it was kind of like Willy Wonka's chocolate factory, but for candles. I actually really enjoyed it. Anyways, but I would go in and clock in, and you know, here's like a bunch of factory workers, and I'd be like, dude, you're not gonna believe this, like my song. Like I was still in shock, obviously, because fucking Elton John shouted me out, and I would like tell people, because I was like, just like it felt so surreal.
Yeah.
And they're like, "That's crazy. Why are you here?" And I was like, I'm not gonna see any of like the money from this for what, like another year maybe, or
Yeah.
streams get pushed back a whole bunch. So yeah, it was pretty surreal, but it was a great moment. I mean, my mom was crying. That's like her childhood icon. Like, that was really
Oh,
cool. Yeah.
you just made my heart smile real big by saying that part. So, did you take a soundbite of it? Did you make it your incoming voicemail for a
Did.
while? Do you have the soundbite of him saying that?
I do. Yeah. I have a
Yeah.
video of it. Yeah, that was such a cool moment. I mean,
Did
because
it
when you
help?
think
Did it help
about
with
it,
him?
it's
Oh,
like,
go ahead. No, you go ahead here. I'll ask in a second.
oh no, I was just gonna say. I mean, it's just crazy to get a nod like that. That's
Yeah.
all.
So, did it help with confidence, imposter syndrome, whatever that is? Like, was it like, okay, thank you, universe, you've shown me that there is a light, and I should keep moving towards it?
I'm glad you said something about imposter syndrome. So let me start off by saying, if you feel imposter syndrome, that means you're not an imposter. Actual imposters don't feel imposter syndrome. And that's something that I've been having to, yeah, I know. So that's been something I've really had to drive. That's a big sort of thing in leadership. I mean, you feel like an imposter when you're in a position of leadership, and you really have to, work around that and understand. So if there's anything I can say to anybody who feels imposter syndrome, it's that if you feel it, you're not an imposter.
You're on the right
Because
track.
people who
Yeah.
are imposters don't feel that. They don't feel a sense of responsibility to the people around them to provide anything. So again, anyways, as far as being an artist, yeah, like that's a part of the territory. You have to, understand that you're creating something for somebody, and then just abolish any sense of, like literally your whole job is to be extraordinary.
Yeah.
So you can't be ordinary.
I'm just letting that sit for
Dropping
a second.
bombs.
I'm just
Dropping
letting it
bombs.
sit. Man, did an hour go by fast with you. I can't wait to have you back. I can't wait to see as we grow and as you grow. I can't wait to find ways to collaborate. This mindfulness that you have at your age, man, honestly, it gives me hope for the future. Like I love hearing this. I love the head on your shoulders, but more so the desire of your heart. And I love the music you put out. Like I really,
Dude,
really do.
thank
Oh,
you.
hey, what did you work with our boy Kojak on? What did you work with him? What was the project that you worked
Oh,
with
dude,
Kojak
that's
with?
like, I love Kojak. I've worked
Oh,
with
what a
him on a
cool guy.
bunch of
What a
records.
cool guy that guy is.
Yeah.
I adore him.
Yeah, that is longtime homie. Honestly, he was probably the biggest influence to me. Again, relativity, like understanding that. Okay, I'm gonna end on a quick note.
Yeah.
So Kojak is the man, because he really showed me, from someone who grew up in Mass who knew nobody who'd made it in music, that proved that you could like have a career and a life in it. He opened that door for me, and I want to let you guys know, the effect of that is so fucking powerful, because you know how we have windows on our computer? Like we can open different windows and have different things going on in the same part.
Yep.
That wasn't a thing until, oh God, I forget who created that. It was a really cool story, but basically the way that happened was a dude, I'm going to butcher this story.
It's okay.
A dude was whoever programmed them, whoever created that, saw at some some other headquarters where there was, computer stuff going on. Man, I'm totally butchering this. He saw what he thought was different windows, like two different things happening on the same computer screen. And so he went and found out how to do that and reverse engineered it. He went and created windows. And then he realized that wasn't actually what he saw. But just having that knowledge, like, okay, it can be done. Like, it's so powerful. It allows you to do what it is you want to do. So
This is why imagination and perception and all of these things are so important. And to bring it back to the front, the skateboarder who imagines the world around them and what it could be, the other ways that you could do things. Creativity is everything. And I mean, don't get me wrong, AI, it's changing the world. It's a strange new place. I get it, but I got a whole bunch of comedy writers in my life. I got a whole bunch of people who are creatives that are in my life. And at the end of the day, creativity of the human spirit, the thing that hasn't been thought of, that is the thing that is the silver bullet that's going to advance whatever it is,
Yeah.
whatever facet of life there is, and art certainly. Yeah, it's interesting to hear, to go back to Nirvana for a second. It's interesting to hear AI create a Nirvana song. And it's, oh yeah, okay, that would match along with it or whatever. But I mean, I also saw 30 or 40 Nirvana clone bands back in the day who were trying to be Nirvana. But then the next band comes along that's completely different, the way that they were different, but they're different in their own individual way. That's the part that's interesting. And that's the
Yeah.
part that it seems like if there's a surfboard that you're riding throughout this universe, that seems to be the surfboard that you're riding. And that's what gives me hope, that innovation and the creativity, the new, the remarkable, like you've talked about. I don't know if this term's been it must have, you've been told you're an old soul, wise beyond your years, things like that. You've been told this before, right? You must have
I have
quite a
been.
bit since you were a little
I
kid,
have,
probably.
um, yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I think so. I think in many ways too, like, I don't know. I've always wanted to, I've always made an active effort to like surround myself with people who are, um, good guides. And okay, I guess if there's one thing that's really helped me is I've always tried to be hyper conscious of what biases are affecting like my, you know, thought processes or
Mm-hmm.
my, decision making or whatever, and not let those factored in. So I've always tried to take a very logic based approach to, how I think and how I speak with people and whatever. So that I think has helped.
Well, and it certainly has, and that's a very good logical way. I'm going to go into the illogical or the emotional and say you also have an intrinsic desire from within you to help others and to make the world a better place. And to we say this all the time: iron sharpens iron. You're an amazing piece of iron, and you enjoy sharpening others, and that is really commendable. If people want to find you online, Velo
Yeah,
Club, what's the best way to find this? Is what are you looking for? And other than ears to hear the art that you're putting out, and but what are you looking for? What's Velo Club looking for? What's the best way for people to reach out to you?
totally. So if you want to check out my music, you can totally go to, Spotify and just type up Poolfire, Poolfire. It's all
Mm-hmm.
one word. It's like a swimming pool, but on fire. And yeah, you can hear any of my stuff there. As far as the Velo Club, we don't, we don't take like artists kind of submitting to us or
Okay,
anything,
it's not
which
a
I
cattle. This is not a
guess,
cattle call, then. Okay.
yeah, not yet. Maybe one
Yep.
day. I don't know. Maybe one day that'll change. I think for right now, we're still just kind of screening it to make sure it's artists that we feel are like a good fit, and and then maybe internal referrals. But you can check out our magazine, which 50% of the proceeds actually go back to those artists, as well as last month we donated, and I think we're going to continue doing that this month. We donated a portion of those proceeds to Really Rad Records, who had a fire that destroyed a whole bunch of inventory. They have a GoFundMe. You can go check that out. And yeah, that was honestly, that made me really proud, because the artists who are part of the Velo Club,
Mm-hmm.
I like manually reached out to them, just texted them. I was like, hey, this DIY label, Really Rad Records, like just had this thing go on. Would you guys be cool if we donated a portion of the artist fund? And they were almost all cool with it. And so that was really cool. We did like a majority vote, and I'm just really, really stoked that they also have that community-based mentality.
Yeah, that's
So
fantastic. It's
it's super
fantastic that
cool.
you're creating that right now because as you explode, we have again the saying in the money business: money doesn't change people; it only amplifies who they already are. And
Yeah.
so if you know right now are doing this when you're at the level that you're at, when it's like this, so too will be the contribution. How do you find the magazine? Where's the best place to find that?
TheVeloClub.com, TheVelo, club, CLUB.com. We also have some merch pre-sales available. Allow for some flexibility with shipping, but again, 50% of those proceeds actually go back to the bands that we work with and stuff. So that's
Do you enjoy the
cool.
merch side
Um,
for Poolfire? Do you enjoy making merch?
I love making merch. I fucking hate dealing with like all the supply chain issues. Cause like, dude, I don't know what it is with like embroidery shops. I'm not going to talk crap about anybody because
No, just
I'm
there's
sure they're really nice
frustration.
people.
There's frustration there, though.
Dude, every
Yeah.
time I get a quote on timing, it is like they draw it out like 4 times. So anyways, I stay on top of them, but there's only so much I can do. So,
Yeah.
but I do love like making this merch. I mean, it's specifically like I've taken so much time, like with anything, I think you have to kind of be kind of an artist
Yep.
in exploring the details. So like we pick like very ethical sourced uh manufacturers for like any of our blanks. I believe I want to say it's 400 GSM organic cotton that they make with like 75% less water, no toxic
Mm.
dyes. The embroideries are local in LA. I sometimes want to go over and slap people around, but I'm not going to. No, they do a great job and they take
Um,
their time with it. But yeah,
well, I look forward to seeing where all of these things that you have, cooking, all these pots that are stirring right now. I look forward to tasting all of them. I look forward to seeing what Velo Club does and for who. And
totally.
what you'll be able to stretch out and put out into the world because of your support and help. I look forward to seeing when Poolfire is live and going around and touring the amazing music, and I look forward to seeing some of this merch and listening to more music that you release. You've got friends in us. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day, Ben. It's not going to be the last time. This is just it's not a goodbye. We're doing the cowboy thing. You don't say goodbye. You say see you later, and that's what we're doing. We're saying see you later. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to come on to HeCast, man.
Yeah, thank you so much for all the kind words and thank you so much for the opportunity. And yeah, you guys got a friend in me too. It's
Well, we
love all around.
appreciate that.
Love.
We appreciate that. Just stay here. We'll say our goodbye privately. I'll just do a really quick outro.
Okay.
That's why we do the
Is this
show.
where we kiss?
This is where we
Oh,
would,
thank
yes.
goodness. I was waiting for it.
No, it's coming. It's coming. Joel
Good.
set you up with that. No problem. This is why we do the show. Everybody, thank you so much for taking time to listen to. Sometimes we have folks who tell their stories, whatever that looks like, and sometimes it is more on the professional side of things, coaches and counselors and psychologists, things like that. Sometimes it's guys and their stories. And it's all of these things. One of the things about He Changed It that I love so much is the idea of take something that you need, leave something that you know. And there's a whole bunch of stuff that Ben knows that he has left that people can take in this episode here today. And I just again, it wasn't lip motion when he was on here. It gives me hope seeing young people with that attitude and that mindset and that wanting to sharpen others and help grow them. That's exactly what He Changed It's all about. If you haven't downloaded the He Changed It app yet, what are you waiting for? Big things
What
are
are you waiting
coming.
for?
Go to go to HeChangedIt.com. You can check out everything that the company's all about. The links to whichever app persuasion that you have, technological persuasion that you have, can get the app on your device now. And we're just so excited about wanting to make the world a better place in the world of men's mental wellness. And you ain't seen nothing yet. That has been another episode of HeCast, the official podcast of He Changed It. My name is Mike Chisholm. Go change something.